What's up everybody, my name is Carl, and today I thought to talk to you about what I think are the 6 ugliest cars from the 80s. After looking at the 90s period last year, how could I not go back to the funky, cool, retro era of car? Although having said that, these cars are not really retro or funky or cool. As per usual, we are using the 6 car category list, which is convertible, SUV, small car, GT/luxury car, supercar/sports car/hypercar, and then we have general car, which can kind of vary from anything, so it could be a saloon car or it could be a hyper GT. And of course, this is my opinion entirely. You might have a different opinion alone, so if you want to participate, please do so by commenting down below using the 6 car category list what you think are the 6 ugliest cars from the 80s. With that out of the way, let's begin, and we're going to start with the ugliest convertible from the 80s, which goes to the 1985 Chrysler LeBaron convertible. So the most obvious thing you'll notice is the wood panelling on the exterior of the car, which, by the way, is the very thing that makes this car look hideous. Okay, so wood panelling on cars can work for interior trims, for instance on most luxury cars like Bentleys and Rolls Royces, and even some executive cars from brands such as Audi, BMW and Mercedes. But on this? Hell no! See, I would have sort of forgiven it if it actually was real wood panels, but no. Instead, Chrysler used plastic panels of fake wood. Just why? Personally, it doesn't even look like they put any effort into adding it on. It looks like they just used super glue. Moving on to the ugliest SUV from the 80s, and this goes to the 1981 AMC Eagle Camback. You know, AMC should be proud of themselves for being ahead of the time with this compact SUV. That is, if they don't look it in the eye. If you want to know what a monster car looks like, then this by definition is it. It's like they got the front end of a typical American saloon car or sedan, and then they slapped the back end of a hatchback for the rear, and then they added some wide fenders and then put the car on stilts to make it a crossover SUV. Frankenstein's car, everybody. It's a really bad mishmash of a car, and it just gets more and more uglier as you stare at it. I think the rear end is just straight up disturbing. And now moving on to the ugliest small car, which goes to the 1980 Zastava Yugo. I feel like the Yugo is just a very bad and dreary carbon copy of a VW Golf or Fiat Panda of the time. More or less, it's just a box with some wheels on it. There's no soul or enthusiasm in the aesthetics of the car. It's just very bland. I feel like if you own this car, it's as if you've just given up on life and hate yourself. Which is why I've just bought one! I'm just kidding, of course. I wish. Moving on to the ugliest GT car, which goes to the 1980 Aston Martin Lagonda. This is a disappointment, as Aston Martin have always made incredible looking cars. How did they go from this to this monstrosity? I think Aston one day decided, look here, I've got a ruler, never used it before, say why don't we make a new car for shits and giggles, but only using a ruler. Aside from the wheel arches and the wheels, there is not a single curve on this car. Everything is straight lines and rectangular. Unfortunately, this is the ugly duckling in the Aston Martin family. And now moving on to the ugliest sports car from the 80s, which goes to the 1981 Maserati Biturbo. Speaking of ugly ducklings, this was the eventual successor of the very cool and sleek Maserati Merak. So how do they go from that to this? It just has no style to it at all. There are no curves, there are no creases, there's no organic shapes and forms. It's just, well, in the case of the example I've shown, it's very brown. Certainly from the side and rear, it doesn't really look like a Maserati, more like an Audi of the time. Having said that, some online sources state that this looks very similar to the 1980 Chevrolet Citation. It's sad to see this as a dark moment for Maserati, especially considering now that they have produced the really stylish and good looking MC20. And finally, moving on to the ugliest car in general from the 80s, and this goes to the 1987 Gellaitry Facet. So this started out as a Range Rover, a great start, and then they ended up with this. Bad move. It's like they wanted to make this Range Rover a Lamborghini LM002, but they looked at a really blurry photo of it, or they closed their eyes while they were designing it. This is yet another blocky looking car. I'm not sure why in the 80s that was a design style for cars, but in this case it doesn't work very well. I really dislike the shape of the car, as proportionally it just looks wrong. The back end is shorter than the front end. Not to mention that this monstrosity is also a convertible with a Targa top roof. I don't think anyone would want to volunteer to sit in this thing. I feel like the rear end of the car is very badly styled. For example, the rear taillights are just hideous, as well as the whole rear bumper design. When this car was listed as new, it cost £55,000, and to be honest, you'd have to really not care about how you look to be caught driving this thing. It definitely is an automotive piece of trash, and something I hope to forget soon enough. So in conclusion, those are my picks for what I thought were the 6 ugliest cars from the 80s. Of course, you guys will have your own opinions, so please do comment them down below what you think are the ugliest cars from the 80s using the 6 car category list, which consists of convertible, SUV, small car, GT/luxury car, super/sport/hypercar, and then all-round general car. I look forward to seeing what you guys pick and what you think of my picks as well. So like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!